How are things with Mr. Augie here?
Really good. Yeah, we went to the vet yesterday. 'Cause he needed some get up to date on some of his vaccines.
Yeah. How old is he?
And we had to. He's gonna be 5
Okay.
in March, they think. And there were a couple dogs in there, like close proximity, and one of them was like a little dog that was just like going crazy, and he handled it very well. I
Nice.
was very happy with that. He's met a few new people, both in my apartment and my girlfriend's apartment,
Okay.
and that's gone well. The biggest issue I've had with that is he's kind of like turning away from me as I'm trying to like walk into him.
Yep.
And he's like sitting down
Yep.
that way. So I kind of just have moved him like from the side, but I don't know how like strict you want me to be with. I remember you said try to stay like in front of him.
Yeah, so if he
Back
gives you
him
a
up.
side, right? So like let's say you're trying to push him through that doorway and he's standing like this to you. It's more that you're facing him like this. You don't have to be facing him directly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I can still bully him using my body language, but my body is pointed this way, even though the front of him is pointed that way.
Okay.
We're still getting that same communication
Okay.
across. If you're still having to use your body, would you say like 50-50 with the remote, more body than the remote, or is it less body, more remote?
I would say probably more body, less remote.
So I would up your levels.
Okay.
Because at this point, he should already be turning away from you and already walking back.
Okay.
Because they connect that in that particular context, the front of your body means I need you to back up.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, because the last time I saw you was before the New Year, correct? Or did I see you after the
I
New
think
Year?
it was after the New Year,
So at
but it
least a
was
month.
early. I think it was, yeah, like January 10th.
Yeah, because this happened.
But-
I haven't seen you since this happened. This
Been
happened
about a month.
the January 18th. Yeah, so at least about a
Yeah,
month.
yeah.
So at this point, for sure, he should already have it down.
Okay.
So what's happening is most likely he's relying on your body to make him move. So when you start to up the levels, he obviously wants less of this, that he's going to start giving you more for less.
Okay.
Okay, so like literally, he could be all the way by that door over there, and if he's coming over here, if I turn and I tap, it should already back him up without me needing to go over there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we're connecting that when I face you and I do this, it means give me space, but in the beginning you have to push them. But once they get it down, you shouldn't be having to do what you do, maybe a step or two, and then he gets it.
Okay.
And in time, you probably even see where he'll stop even attempting to try to
Agreed
to
at
move
the
forward.
moment, yeah.
Exactly. But even if that happens, we still always give a tap just to make sure that we settle the dog down. Because some clients will note like, oh, my dog stays behind the threshold. They've learned not to charge the door. But then when I open the door, they'll still charge. I go, yes, because they've learned the exercise, but mentally they're still escalated. So even though they're not charging, you still have to give the initial tap to settle them, to prevent them from charging. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say give it, depending on how many guests you have coming over, another 2 weeks to a month of that. What number are you using now for the door?
Like 25, 30.
Go to 30.
Okay.
And then if 30 you still feel like you're doing the bulk of the work, then you start at 35,
Okay.
which is it's going to be considerably noticeable.
Yeah.
And you might even see the opposite where, let's say you hit 35, and now he's pushing against you as you're pushing into him. That tells me that you're actually close because he's thinking like, what do I need to do to stop this pressure? But his brain is thinking obedience, which is usually come closer, and eventually it'll click like this isn't the answer.
Okay.
I need to move away.
Okay.
Okay. Typically, when the dog starts doing stuff and the owner they're like, "Oh, this is the opposite of what I want." That's actually how I can tell that we're getting close because it's impactful enough that the dog is thinking, "What do I need to do to stop this?" Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Other questions? This little nose thingy here.
Yeah, that's been there since birth. I've had a couple vets look at it.
Oh, okay.
They said it's fine. One said they could remove it, but there would probably be a scar there and it would look
Worse than.
similar or what it was. I mean, aesthetically, it doesn't really bother me as long
I
as
thought it was
it's
just
not.
from the muzzle or something.
No.
We
no.
get a couple of dogs that get irritation here because of the bridge.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think, yeah, like I said, he's been good.
Okay.
Yeah, walks have been good.
Were we going to work on place today?
Yeah, and I brought this little blanket that he uses at home.
Okay.
That's on one of his beds. Just
So
I
let
didn't know if
me-
that was the best way to do it, or
Yeah, so we can use that. I'm gonna grab an actual elevated bed here.
Okay.
Just to make it a little bit easier. And then we'll get started on place.
Okay. Good boy. Good boy.
Shh. So, because I hadn't seen him in a while, you see how he just came up to me and like put himself against me? One thing when we get these kind of nervous reactive cases is that you'll see them come into the human space, and then shortly after they'll start growling at the person. So clients usually get thrown off because they're like, Jesse, I don't understand, like the dog put themselves there. So usually what happens is, especially if that person has had a negative experience with the dog, they see that and they go, oh my God, your dog loves me now, right? They just think the dog is fixed. They think the dog no longer hates them because they're thinking as a human. So then they start to come in with the typical, oh my God, la, la, right? The high pitched stuff, a lot of like energy. And then the dog goes, whoa, like I'm just barely opening up to you, right?
Yeah.
So here he came up to me. I kept my conversation with you. I wasn't even looking at him, just really subtle touch, right? Because he was leaning in against me. He was putting his head up like this. All of that was telling me like, hey, like you're in my circle of trust kind of thing, right? But if I would have been like, oh my God, buddy, and I put my face in his face and all this other kind of big friendly energy, the human sees it as positive because it's friendly, but it can be over the top for the dog. And that's where the dog goes, whoa, and then they have to set a boundary. It's super common that I've had that happen to clients.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them, it's like, it's the dog just starting to open up and the person comes in with all this energy. Now, anybody that he, like you, or anybody that he sees similarly to you could do that with him because you're like his family.
Yeah.
Everybody else that he's just opening up to, I would just make sure to tell them, like, just be mindful of your energy, just nothing over the top.
Yeah, I usually have them just ignore, like we keep the muzzle on for a little while after, and I just have them ignore him until, you know, he's gone, ignored them, and then settled down, and he's not paying much attention to them.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, if you ever see that happening where he's opening up to someone, just tell him, like, be neutral. And then in time, because clients always ask, like, well, how do I know? I go, you can tell, right? Like when you saw him come towards me, I'm assuming you could tell, like, oh, he's like completely neutral right now, right?
Yeah.
So, but that is something I've seen for whatever reason, people and putting their faces in their dog's faces is a thing. So if it's your dog, fine.
Yeah.
But I've even had people get bit by their own dog. So
Yeah. Come here, buddy.
you can bring his bed thingy, his blanket.
Okay.
So we'll treat it similarly to like the bed that you would use at home.
Okay. So, here. He always does this too. Come here, buddy.
Now, does he? I can't remember from before. Have a command for this?
Yeah, he has go to your bed.
Go to your bed. Okay.
Yeah.
But we've not ever done anything with it with remote collar, correct?
No, and we don't, I've never used it in other environments besides my apartment.
Okay.
You know, I haven't taken him to like a park and done it with anything. Like I've had him at a park, obviously just chill and do nothing, but I haven't had it like, you know, with other distractions going on.
Sure.
He does it fine in my girlfriend's apartment where I tell him, you know, go to your bed and he knows. I think that's really the only other place that
Is there ever any like external stimuli, like friends coming over and stuff, and he's on his bed, or is it just like if you guys are hanging out, you will put him there?
It'll be like sometimes, you know, like after he's met somebody and they come back and we just kind of want him to chill, tell him go to his bed. But I wouldn't say it's any like new people just maybe coming by.
Okay.
you know, I've used it a couple times, like, oh, I need to grab something from the door. Somebody's just dropping something off, and I'll tell him, like, go to your bed so that he's, you know, far enough back from the door. He's not going to, like, charge it or anything.
Sure,
which
sure.
he, you know,
What's the longest you'll
doesn't.
hold for?
I mean, he'll typically stay there for a decent while.
Okay.
Like he's pretty chill dog at home. Like he'll just relax on his bed most of the time anyways. So.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So a formal place command is applicable no matter the environment. You know, if you went to a restaurant, you want to bring him with you, technically you could bring your blanket here, roll it on the ground, place, he goes there, he's there while you're eating or whatever. When guests come over. So those are like the two most common applications would be at restaurants and when guests come over.
Okay.
Obviously, you can use it anytime you need them to be still. With stationary work or the place command, it's the most lenient of the three. So we have sit, down, and place. Sit would be put your butt down. No lay down, no stand. Down would be lay down, no sit, no stand. Place is go to the object. I don't care if you sit, stand, lay down, chew on a bone, or play with a toy. Just don't step off of the boundary of the object. So it's the easiest to apply. It's the easiest to reinforce. So like if a client is at a restaurant and they have a cute dog, it's social, and the person asks like, oh, can I pet your dog? And they say, sure. If the dog was laying down and then stood up or sat up to be pet, as long as they stayed within the object, it'd be completely fine.
Okay.
But if the dog is in a down and someone goes to pet the dog and the dog sits and or stands to be pet, that would have to be corrected.
Gotcha.
So people typically lean towards place just because it's more lenient while still giving them the stationary control. We just have to always have something that the dog recognizes as an object that they're supposed to go to,
Okay.
but that also gives them a boundary.
Okay.
So like I wouldn't use a white towel on this floor because they look too closely similar.
Yeah.
So like I had a client that had something like this. It was like a brown towel, but they had wood floor.
Okay.
And their dog was struggling. So then I was like, try either a completely different color towel or something that's elevated, which is why I brought out this dog bed here.
I have a bed similar to this, but it doesn't have the extenders. It just lays flat on the floor that we've used in the kennel
Place is
before,
also
but-
super versatile in what you can use. Like you could even use like these little floor mats that we have here. The elevation just helps because the dog has to step up. Obviously, dog beds are super common. Towels, blankets. I've had clients use yoga mats, ottomans, chairs. I've had clients take a bed sheet and wrap a cushion of the couch to differentiate that particular cushion from the rest of the couch. There just has to be something that shows the dog this is different and this is where I expect you to hold. Does that make sense? You can have more than one object tied to the word of place. It's probably here, Zena, in there. More than one object tied to the word of place. Or you can have different objects with different words, but they all essentially are the same thing of go here and don't move.
Okay.
You do have to teach the object first before the dog will recognize it. So if I told you have a seat, like you'd see the two blue chairs, you'd see that bench right there, you know, you could even sit on that wheel right there, right? Like, you know, as a human, oh, I got a lot of options. Dogs don't do that. For the dog, if you train his dog bed to be his place and then you go to your girlfriend's house and then it's a completely different looking dog bed and you said place or go to your bed, he may not do that because he's going, wait, that's a different object. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's very simple. Once we've taught the dog to recognize that that object is now also considered place, everything behind it will transfer over, meaning him recognizing it as an object to go to, and then also the length of time he'll hold. Okay, so if he's able to hold still for 2 to 3 hours on place, and you teach him another object is place, that will also transfer over. You're just teaching him this is now the new place.
Okay.
Make sense? A lot of my clients will keep stuff like this in their car, like a towel or a blanket or something, because it's very easy to roll up, takes a little bit of space. So that this way, if they ever go anywhere and they need stationary control of the dog, they can just take it, roll it out, and they always have it with them.
Okay.
Questions? So in the beginning, because he already has a concept of go to your bed, as you saw, he was already kind of prematurely going. I'm going to have you start restraining him and not allowing him.
Okay.
What are you currently set to on your remote?
Should be 40.
So I'm going to have you dip that down and go down to 20 because we're teaching something new. So whenever we teach something new, we always go down low and then raise it as needed. So if you're approaching the object, because he already has familiarity, he might go off your momentum and just go. You're not going to allow him. You're going to shorten the leash, okay? We're not going to worry about heel or anything like that right now because I don't want him to tie those two things together. Because then you'll be healing with them, and then you'll see something and like just dart, okay? So we won't say anything here. You're gonna come up to about a foot away, so like the distance that you're at there. We're not gonna start with any cues. We're gonna start first with the remote, okay? We're gonna see what he does. So if you start tapping at that 20, and we know he feels it, by the third tap, if he's not responding, we're gonna keep tapping and then lightly pull him towards the object to guide him on, okay? Once he's on the object, everything stops. The tapping stops, the pulling stops. If Augie overshoots, you're gonna counter him, start tapping again, he goes back on, everything stops.
Okay.
Maybe he steps over to greet me, you pull him back, tap, to back him off, to put him back on the object, okay?
Okay.
We're not saying no, we're not saying we're not saying place, we're not saying go to your bed. This is all through the remote collar.
Okay.
And I'll
So
coach
when
you.
I pull up here and stop, you said restrain him to not.
If he goes, correct.
Okay.
Okay, we want him to go in response to the remote.
Okay. Then as soon as I tap, I can let
Then
him
he,
go.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Then he's technically able to go.
Okay.
So in some cases, you might tap, and he hops on right away. That's perfectly fine.
Okay.
We just don't want him to go before the tap.
Okay.
Okay. Now, and I'm going to coach you through. So we're at 20, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and tap, 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 tap lightly, pull, tap, right there. Wait a sec. And praise. Good boy.
Good boy, Augie. Good boy.
And then you're going to say break, release, move backwards.
Okay.
And you're going to walk back again to that same spot. And we're going to repeat that 4 more times, remembering not to allow him if he prematurely goes.
Okay.
Good. Hold right there. Tap, tap, tap lightly, pull. Good. And then when you're approaching,
Good boy.
come to a complete stop. Wait a
Okay.
moment, and then we'll start tapping.
Okay.
So that he doesn't, because I think right when you approach, you started tapping, and then you're going to create this sequence where he's going to want to go immediately because
Okay.
he's going off your momentum again.
Okay.
Break. 3 more.
Okay.
Yep. Pull right there. Pause. Tap. 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 Tap lightly. Pull. Good. Praise, praise, praise. Attaboy.
Good boy. Good boy.
2 more.
Okay.
Tap, 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 tap lightly. Pull. Good. Praise, praise.
Good boy. Good boy, Augie. Good boy.
1 more.
Okay.
Tap, 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 tap lightly. Pull. Good. We're gonna pause right there. Good.
Good boy.
So, what can we tell so far with what we're doing?
His heel is good. That's what he's used to, is like stopping and sitting
he's
by my
defaulting.
side. Yeah.
Yep. What about with place?
He probably doesn't recognize us without like the verbal command yet. He doesn't look very comfortable on it. Like maybe he doesn't like it.
Currently, yep. The way
Yeah.
he's laying down, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
He's got the haunches up. Kind of
Yeah.
looks like he's ready to pounce there. So you're correct, right? So the reason why we do it this way is you, one for one, already told me he has a phrase. Go to your bed.
Yeah.
So if you say go to your bed and you tap on the collar and he goes, I don't know why. Was it because of the phrase, or is it because of the tap, or maybe was it a lucky guess, right? So we train backwards. We move sounds, pressure, shape what we want. Once we know the tap itself is creating the behavior, then I go, now you can smack a word to it, okay? So right now when he feels 20, one, he's hanging back. He's being cautious. He's going into a down position, right? And then you're still having to guide him with the leash. So what we're doing here is we're creating a sequence. It's 3 taps. If he doesn't respond, the taps continue, plus you lead him to the object. The moment he goes on, everything disappears. So we're just needing him to start connecting those dots, okay? In some cases, I've had dogs with 0 training. The owner would tap the button, and the dog would just jump on the bed. And they're like, holy shit, my dog's never done that before. And I'm like, it's just a lucky guess. but it allows us to already start skipping steps because the dog already gave us what we're looking for. I've had other clients trained by other e-collar trainers, and they'll say, if I say place, the dog will go. But then if I try to correct the dog won't go back. And I go, that tells me the dog does not know place. So then they'll do similar, they'll start tapping, and the dog will actually start backing away. That's obviously not what we're looking for. We want the pressure to always push the dog into the behavior, right, into the obedience. So we do the same thing, we have to reshape it. Because most people tend to think punishment-based. If I say place and you don't go, I'm gonna punish you for not going. Whereas the way I teach it is we use the pressure, because you're at 40, we halved it, we went 50%, super low, so I know he can feel it, right? It's annoying him because he's thinking, what do I gotta do to stop it? And we're going, that's not it, buddy, here's a little bit of help. So eventually he starts thinking, hey, every time dad taps on that, I lay down, that's not the answer, but eventually he will pull me, and the moment I go to that object, the thing I don't like disappears. And then we're gonna start to see him responding to the pressure. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now currently, because we're using pressure behind the command itself, or this behavior, it's not pleasant because it's discipline, right? So that's why we get this kind of uncomfortable positioning here. This is normal in the beginning, okay? In time, of course, once he understands the name of the game, you'll say, go to your bed, he'll go there, even with or without pressure, and be much more relaxed, okay? So now, because we're making it mean something, it's like growing up, again, I was raised old school. There was one time where I said, Mom, make me a sandwich, okay? And she just looked at me, she goes, what did you say? I was like, Mom, make me a sandwich. And she's like, nah, may I have a sandwich? Could you please make me a sandwich, right? Those are requests, whereas when I said make me a sandwich, that is actually a command. Does that make sense? So when something is commanded, it gives a different energy versus when something is requested. When we do obedience, they're obedience commands, not obedience requests, right? So that's why also when we put pressure behind it, it makes it meaningful, where it's coming across as you need to do this, is we're gonna see some discomfort there. Does that make sense? Questions so far on any of that? So currently, he's holding still, it's only been about 2 to 3 minutes, right? Is when we do layer the word or phrase, go to your bed, we don't say stay, okay? Stay is implied in almost everything that we do. Heel, walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. Recall, come to me, stay with me until I release you. Place, go to your bed, don't get off until I give you permission. Sit, put your butt down, don't move. Down, lay down, don't move, right? Stay is implied in some kind of shape or form with everything that we teach. So the way we create that implied stay is, one, putting pressure behind stuff, but then also, let's say you had Augie do this for an hour, and a friend came over, or Amazon came over, or whatever, and we have a distraction, and he goes to step off, what do you think you would do to correct him?
Tap.
Correct. And what do we expect? Yes, he should go back. Right? So that's another reason why we're doing this, is we're teaching Augie, if you want to turn this off, go to the object. So in the future, if he steps off and I apply that correction, it should, of course, send him back to the object, okay? A lot of times when the dogs are not properly conditioned, the dog will break off, person will correct the dog, but it'll push him away from the object because they're not tying together. This means go back. Does that make sense? Because clients always ask, they're like, Jesse, why am I tapping the button? The dog's doing nothing wrong. I go, they're not, but we have to shape this some way. I cannot explain to him, hey buddy, I'm gonna turn this thing on, and the moment you go to the bed, it'll turn off, right? I can say it to him, he's just not gonna know what it means, right? Dogs have to learn everything real time, okay? So I'll repeat that same process. I'm gonna have you go ahead and bump it around to 25. And this time, instead of sending Augie from the same direction, you can actually start walking around.
Okay.
You're still gonna keep it at about a foot away, but now you're gonna send Augie from different directions, okay? So go ahead and release him.
Okay.
Good.
Well, I didn't tap
Yeah,
him,
it's okay.
so.
Go ahead and release him again.
Okay.
And then this time when you approach, just restrict him.
Yeah.
Tip, 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 tip. Wait, there we go. So you see how on that one, right when you're about to pull, he was actually already making the decision of going.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
4 more.
Okay.
Good boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, yep. How many was that?
Just one.
Good.
I mean,
You started?
yeah,
Yep.
I guess I didn't wait. I probably could have got a second one before he got there, but because he was,
So technically speaking, with most commands that we teach except recall, the moment I tap, if I see it pushing the dog into behavior,
yeah,
I'll lay off. And then sometimes what happens is they'll start it and they'll stop it. And then I'll kick in.
Okay.
So then it actually lets them know, like, you could have avoided this, but the fact that you stalled and delayed is why another one kicked in. But it helps the dog kind of clarify, like, okay, if I actually move like this,
Yeah.
this happens less.
he still does that with heel. Like he'll get a little bit far ahead of me, and then one tap he'll come right back. But then like that next step, he tries to take in front of me again.
What's your healing number? 40?
Yeah.
Try 45.
Okay.
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 One more. Good.
Good boy.
Good.
Good boy. Good boy. Good boy.
2 more.
Okay.
Yep. Good.
Good boy. Good boy, Augie. Good boy.
1 more.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Was that 1 or 2?
That was 2.
Okay. So the
Good
first
boy.
one put him into the down position.
Yeah.
Right, like he was doing before. The second one helped him kind of clarify there. So, which is all normal because he's still processing. So even though 25 was better than 20, he's, how would you say, still experimenting with his outs. Okay, because he's like, is it really me going here that turns the pressure off? Okay. So the subtle difference between 20 to 25 already had, in terms of intensity, right away was already motivating him to think, I want to resolve this sooner, right? Because you started tapping on the third tap and then on the fourth tap, just before you were about to pull, I saw him picking up and then going, right? So I start playing with the number. So we do the first 5 reps. It was 20. You kept having to help him. We created this sequence. And I was like, go ahead and go to 25. So the first batch was just to start helping him to connect the dots. This turns on, I go here, it turns off without being overwhelming. If you would have done this at 40, it would have been too much. You would have most likely see him bucking back because he's like, I don't know what to do here. Okay? So you're trying to, even though it's his working number in other aspects like heal or recall or whatever, whenever you're teaching something new, it's too much that the dog is unable to think and process, why is this happening and what do I need to do to turn it off, okay? So we go down to 20, did our first batch, talked for a little bit, bumped to 25, and 25 gave just a little bit more motivation to him, going, you want to figure this out sooner and not always have to rely on the pull. Because if he's always waiting till the pull, that's going to keep happening more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So ideally, we want to start getting, and we already saw a couple where you tap him once and it sends him to the object. Okay, now we're still in the learning phase. Speed comes with time and or pressure. Okay, so if you practice at 25 for the next month, and then you come back and you're like, yeah, he's pretty good at place, and I'll tell him to go and he'll go, and then you send him, and he goes to place, but he's just kind of lollygagging while he's doing it, that's not serious. Okay, so then I have to start playing with the pressure. I want the dog to have some sort of sense of urgency in everything that we do, okay? Urgency means that's important. So if I say place, he kind of just shoots there, okay? And I go, okay, this is important to you because you want to get there as quickly as possible because you want to beat the punch, okay? We will use the cue, go to your bed, or whatever cue you want to use by the end of class. If you said go to your bed and he goes, before you press the button, nothing happens. He beats the punch. That's the game, okay? Most people want to give the dog the opportunity to avoid the collar, so they'll usually say the phrase, wait a second or two, say the phrase again, wait another second or two, and then either get sterner or then finally use the remote. So now the dog learns I have a 4 to 5 second delay before I really have to listen. When I train dogs, I cue the word and I give them a quarter to half a second, and if they don't respond, I kick them with the pressure immediately. Okay? So the dog goes, I have a quarter to half a second to respond if I want to beat the punch. That is also what helps create urgency, because the dog has to respond quickly in order to avoid the collar. Does that make sense? So with every other command, heel, sit, down, stay, place, we give the dog the opportunity to perform the task quick enough to avoid the collar. The only command we don't do that with is the recall, because of the proofing stuff. Every time I call the dog, regardless if they perform or not, I will always remote them in case I create confusion because I had a mistimed correction or whatever, and I send the dog away. I would then correct that to send them back to me. That's why we do it with recall, is to create a problem so that we can fix it, so that in the future I'm not worried about is the dog going to run away from me if I tap him at the wrong time. Every other command, we don't do that. They have the opportunity to beat the punch. Okay? Does that make sense? Question so far? So this exercise is what I call the sending exercise. So place has two components, the send and the stay. Okay? Send is obviously leaving your side, going to the object. The stay is not moving. Okay? We have two different exercises for those. The sending one is what we're doing right now. Place, break, place, break, place, break, right? The first batch of 5, he needed help. The second batch of 5, we tweaked the number, needed less help, right? So as you start to rehearse this exercise, it should obviously start getting better, to where once we apply the word or the phrase go to your bed, he just goes there very quickly. And if you start to see that consistently time and time again, then I go, you understand the exercise. I no longer need to do this anymore. Okay, then I can just focus on the stay aspect. You don't have to achieve the send before you practice the stay. So let's say he's having a hard time connecting go to your bed with the action. It doesn't mean that you can't say go to your bed 15 minutes before a guest comes over and have him stay there for an hour. Those are two completely different things. He might just be slow to go there, but it doesn't mean that he's unable to stay there. Make sense?
Yeah.
So this exercise, because it is redundant, place, break, we practice for 2 to 3, 3 to 5 minutes max, 1 to 2 times a day. Okay?
Okay.
Most people send their dog within a leash-like distance, so about 4 to 6 feet, and they're usually pretty happy with that. Every person, of course, is different. I do get some clients that want to be able to send their dog to place from anywhere within the home. Okay? That's obviously more difficult because now we're increasing the distance, but then also we might be in a different room when we're sending the dog. Okay? If that's the case, expect us to take longer. If you're happy with, I want to send my dog from here and I'm good, then it's probably you're going to get it done within the week. Okay? In terms of applying place, some clients will have an object in each room that they would use it. So like maybe the bedroom and the kitchen and the living room.
Okay.
Some clients will have one object that they move from room to room, and other clients will have a central object to the home. So it might be next to the TV in the living room, right? And then they can send the dog from upstairs, from downstairs, from the kitchen, and all that stuff, but the spot stays the same. Everybody is different. Most people either keep one object that they move from room to room, or they'll keep an object in each room that they would use the command in. Okay? Dogs learn by association. So if you have a bed in the living room and a bed in the bedroom, if you said go to your bed in the bedroom, he would go to the one in the bedroom.
Yeah, he's got 2 right now, and I'd say 99% of the time he goes to the one that's closest to him.
Yeah.
And
That's usually how dogs work.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's say in the future, 2 years from now, you replace one of his beds with a completely different looking bed. You would have to repeat this exercise. Okay? Tapping to send him, connecting the dots.
Okay.
But he would be able to hold, again, the duration aspect of it. You're just teaching him this is now going to be the new object for go to your bed.
Okay.
Okay? Questions on any of that? So like let's say you use this is when guests come over. There's 2 different exercises. So a lot of trainers do teach place to address territorial issues with guests coming over. Because theoretically, if the dog is on place, they can't charge the door, right? And that's correct. But if there's no consequence, like if it's positive only, and the owner places the dog and the guest comes in, the dog thinks this is a threat, they're still going to break off a place. That's one problem. Second, if you place a dog in response to someone coming over, they might be on the object, but they're mentally still territorial. Okay, so they can still not like the fact that there's a person in the home. Okay, so let's say they're doing remote collar training, the dog will hold place because they respect the collar, but it doesn't mean the dog's going to be passive. Okay, the exercise that I showed you about backing away Augie is meant to bring him to passiveness. Okay, so you can use place in conjunction, where first you would back him away, get him to be passive, then place would follow.
Okay.
Does that make sense? If someone knocks on the door and he were to perk up and you said place and he went and he's on the dog bed but he's still perked up, you still have the same problem. Does that make sense? So you don't have to use place when guests come over. My preference is always backing away from the door. That in itself should be enough. But if you wanted to tie this in, that's how that would work. You'd back him up first and then you would send him to place.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. So that might be somebody who's only coming over for a few minutes that probably not going to meet him. I could back him up, put him in place, talk to them for a few minutes, they leave.
Correct.
And then he's fine. People that I would like to meet him or are going to stay for a while, we've used, like I back him up, wait for him to calm down, and then they come on his side, wait a second, kneel, wait for him to calm down, and then pet him. And that has seemed to work the last couple times that we've done.
Also, like let's say it's if you just want to test his obedience and it's someone you know he's completely fine with, you could just place him, right? So now you have him on place, but he's excited to test him because we're not worried about any escalation and territorial behavior or whatever. If you have someone coming over who's maybe not a fan of big dogs, right, a little nervous around big dogs, that's where having stationary control also comes into play. Because then you back him up, calm him down, place him, and then they go, oh, your big Dobie is on play, like he's well trained. It helps them feel more relaxed. Because typically when they come in, you'll see them just kind of have that apprehension, and the dog sees the apprehension. So then he goes, you're acting weird, but they don't understand that they're acting weird because they're afraid of big dogs. And it creates like a little bit of a feedback loop there. Okay, so that's also something you can do for like people that are uncomfortable on big dogs or whatever, is having something like this as well. Okay, other questions? When it comes to practicing duration, so right now we've been talking about 5-10 minutes and he's been holding still, is I just tell people practice as you live your life. If you're gonna watch TV, read a book, work from home, be on your computer, anytime that you're gonna just be stationary for a bit, you can practice stationary work. So if we need a dog to be able to hold it for 2 to 3 hours, when guests come over during dinner or something, you have to practice up in that range at least a couple times a week so that it's functional when you need it. It's not like, okay, I'm gonna do this exercise of place break, and then one day I hope he's gonna be able to do it for 2 hours. You have to practice this regularly, okay? So I always tell everybody, anytime that we teach something, find at least one time a day that you can use it in life, okay? Heel is obviously super easy. We walk our dogs all the time. Recall is usually pretty easy because people like letting their dogs go play or chase squirrels, whatever. Place, as easy as it is to implement and practice, it gets the most overlooked, I think, because it is so easy to implement and practice. People put it on the shelf and like, oh yeah, sure, like my dog gets it, you know, I'll use it when I need it. But then when they need it, it's not applicable because they're not using it regularly. Okay? So
he's annoying enough when I'm just doing nothing that I have sent him,
yeah,
at least once a day. So
good. So in terms of length of time, I always think of when and where you would apply this, and how long you would need them to do it for. Right. So if the answer is the longest you'd be on this is 2 hours, I go, okay, fine, at least 2 to 3 times a week. You practice up in that range of 2 hours plus, if possible. And then the other days you can do 30 minutes here, an hour here, 15 minutes here. But they don't stack on each other. So if you always do 15 minutes, it's not going to one day equal up to 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
At this stage, you will keep the leash on him. So if you're watching TV, you got your couch, maybe you move his dog bed over, you plop it down, you place him, you sit down, you can step on the leash or keep the leash there, you watch TV. Hour goes in, he gets bored, he gets up, you tap the collar. Ideally, he would just go back. If he doesn't go back, you keep tapping, help if needed.
Okay.
Yeah. So then you don't even have to get up. You're just sitting on the couch, right? So you're using time to create the choice of breaking place. Okay. And then once you're done, release, take off the equipment, put it away. Okay. In the first week, if you're practicing this at least once a day regularly, if you need to get up to do something, I suggest releasing first, then getting up, then go to do what you need to do.
Okay.
Because if you get up and then release him, you create a pattern.
Yeah.
So then he's going to assume every time dad gets up, he's going to release me too.
Okay.
Right? So we avoid that pattern by releasing first, then getting up. By the second week, if you've been practicing this and he's doing well and you've had to correct him and all that, you can have him on place, 30 minutes goes by, you get up, you go to the kitchen, he tries to follow, you correct him, he should go back. If not, keep correcting, lead him back, go to the kitchen, do what you gotta do, a couple minutes, come back in the living room, lay down or sit down and keep watching TV. So then he's thinking, okay, sometimes dad's gonna get up and I'm not gonna go with him, okay? And then eventually from that, once that's good, you can start moving his object of place more away from you, creating more distance, still keeping the leash on, okay? People tend to move past the leash too quickly, and then the dog learns that they can try to escape the pressure and then take off, and the owner has nothing that gives them any kind of leverage to be able to stop or control the dog, okay? So then you end up having to compensate with the remote, and you end up jacking it up, trying to make the dog do what you need them to do. So I usually give people about a month, if they're practicing regularly, of keeping the leash on, just in case if the dog tries to escape, I have something to step on to trap them, to get them to go. And then once the dog understands there's no escape, it's just comply, we can start moving past the leash.
Okay.
Okay? Make sense? Questions on that? So now we're gonna go ahead and tie in the phrase. Everything's gonna stay the same. You're gonna walk around, you're gonna come to a stop, you're gonna wait a moment. Go to your bed. If he doesn't respond within that quarter to half a second, you're gonna start tapping. No repeat of the phrase.
Okay.
Okay? Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm also gonna have you stop at about 2 to 3 feet away from the object.
Okay. Yeah, good boy. Go to your bed.
That's fine. Good. Brace.
Good boy. Good boy.
And release.
Okay.
One more. Check, check. Check.
Go to your bed.
Yep. Good.
Good boy. Good boy. Okay.
3 more. Right. Good.
Go to your bed.
Good.
Good boy. Good boy.
2 more.
Okay. Oh boy.
Right. Good.
Go to your bed.
Good.
Good boy, Augie. Good boy.
1 more.
Okay. Go to your bed.
Perfect. Hold right there. Very good. Question so far? Pretty easy. So then, like, if you're going to use this, if a friend's coming over that Augie knows, and you want to practice him being on place but having the added distraction, you'd want to put him on place prior. So if guest is coming over at 5:30, 5 o'clock, he's already on place to already kind of set the mental state.
Okay.
Typically, people want to apply control when they've lost control, and I want to apply control before I lose control. Okay, that's why we have the heel. Heel is a preventative, technically speaking, for reactivity. Okay, it gives the dog something to focus on, so that they're not worried about the environment. Here, if the dogs, even if they're super social and the owner doesn't want them charging or jumping on their guest, they would place them first. Where typically the knock happens, the dog's out of control, and then the owner's sitting there trying to apply the control, but the dog's already frantic, okay? So again, this exercise, place, break, 3 to 5 minutes max, 1 to 2 times a day.
Okay.
Once you feel like his response and everything is, you're happy with it, no need to practice that exercise. You already have the concept down of this means go there. Then it's just practice for duration. Okay. Now there is no limitation to duration. You could have them be on place for 4 hours, 5 hours if you wanted to. Okay. The longest I ever taught a dog was 6 hours. It was a hound mix that didn't like their toddler. It would growl at the toddler and everything. So when they did their board and train, I did this a ton, up to 6 hours at a time. And they were like, why would you have a dog lay for that long? I go, one, dogs sleep 16, 20 hours a day anyways. But two, you got a toddler walking around. The last thing you want to worry about is where's my kid and where's the dog? If I know the dog's sitting there in the corner and they're not going to move for 6 hours, it allows me 6 hours of just focusing on the kid. Okay? So it's nothing mean or anything like that. Again, dogs sleep 16 to 20 hours a day. You're just picking where he's going to do part of that rest. Okay? If he falls asleep and wakes up and tries to get off, he can still remember he was on place. Okay? So if he wakes up, does a stretch, goes a step off, you would correct him just as if he didn't fall asleep. Okay? Sometimes dogs will go to place on their own, like, just to chill, and then they'll think they're on place. Right? So then you might hear him start to whine or even bark because he's thinking, can you release me? So you can release him. It's rare, but it does happen where the dog will go and lay down and then just think they're under command. Okay, but you would release him as if he wasn't.
Okay.
Questions on any of that stuff?
When is a good time to try it in more out at the park or something? Like, is that like a month from now, or like 2 weeks from now?
It depends on how much work you put behind it. So like, if you did this 3 times a day and you had like a busy home and stuff, I would say within a couple of weeks. The most important thing is always comes down to the dog's understanding of turning pressure off by going to the object and then the working level. Once you establish those 2 things, right away. So like when we get boarding trains here, after I teach them place, right away they go to do 2 hours. And in the first 3 to 5 minutes, they'll make about 5 mistakes and I'll correct them and I'll make them figure it out. And then after that, they'll do 2 hours, no problem. Because I spike the number and I make them figure it out. So right away I can get it to happen. But I'm a dog trainer, right? For you, you're learning the skill and you're also learning what is necessary for Augie to behave himself, right? So for example, when you took your healing thing and you said, when I correct him at 40, almost right away after, he'll still at least go 1 step ahead. And then what did I tell you?
Bump it up.
Bump it up.
Yeah.
So I already knew you're just a tad too low. You've made great progress, which is awesome. But for the average dog owner, they go, this is so much better than what it was, that they tend to just accept it. And I go, no, you always want to push for more because it's almost inevitable that if I leave an owner just accepting what they're achieving and not pushing for more, that they're going to regress.
Yeah.
Okay, they get more lenient, whereas I get more stricter. Okay, but because of that strictness, our dogs progress very quickly. Okay, so at this point, when you walk with Augie, it should be 0 corrections for the heel. That should be down pat. Okay, now if you turn the corner and there's like something that triggers him, that's different, right? Because it's sudden, you couldn't plan for it or whatever. So if that's like an issue, I go, that makes sense because it happens sporadically. Okay, but even something like that can be addressed to the point where the dog just learns to keep themselves in check and not blow up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, he's getting, even with that, he's getting better. Like, I mean, the vet yesterday was like, that would have been an absolute nightmare when, before.
And so I'm glad that you had a good experience at the vet.
Yeah.
So when clients tell me that their dogs have a hard time there, I usually don't hold it against the dog.
Yeah.
Because one, the setting, you don't hear the back, but in the back, I'm sure there's cats meowing, dogs barking, whatever. The stress tends to be kind of rush and go. So all those things for the dog, like he's not there thinking like, oh, I'm here to get my vaccinations, right? He's just like, this is stressful for me. So I tell clients, if your dog is great everywhere else, but they struggle at the vet, like I don't hold it against the dog. If the client ever wants help with that stuff, I'll help them. because I would push anywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he did do well.
Yeah.
So
Which I forgot to mention, I didn't even have the e-collar on him. Just because it's a small lobby and I didn't want to have to hold this and the leash and try to hold him. So I just had his prong, but he was like focused on me. He was listening to commands, which he rarely does, or did in the past.
sure.
So yeah, that was without. We walked about a mile to the vet. We used the e-collar on the walk.
Sure.
When I got there, took that off, muzzled him, brought him inside. We went in, got the shot, and we were waiting to pay. And there was really three other dogs in that small lobby, and the one little French bulldog was a menace. And when it ran up to him, he kind of like stood up and was like, "All right, like let's do this." And I corrected him, told him to sit. And he like looked at me right away. So
So the walk that you did there prior is what set up the mental state.
yeah,
Because I've had clients who have failed the Canine Good Citizen. It's the stupidest, easiest test to pass.
yeah,
But because they don't allow punishers or correctional devices, a lot of people fail. So I've had a lot of clients in the past. They're like, "Can you help me pass this? Because I need it for the therapy dog thing." And I go, "Sure." I was like, "We'll do the training. You're going to do about 10 to 15 minutes of training outside, and then walk inside. I bet you'll pass." And they all pass.
yeah,
Because you set up the dog mentally. Okay, so that was good that you did that.
yeah,
I'm always I want to have my equipment on me.
yeah,
But I'm glad to hear that he did well.
yeah,
This is why when I met you at Oz Park, I'm like, you don't have an aggressive dog. You have a dog that's becoming overwhelmed with stress.
Yeah.
And he's trying to protect himself. That's why it's very important that a dog trainer be able to understand where the dog is coming from, because a lot of dogs like Augie do get labeled as aggressive. And then the owner is led down a path of like all this bullshit that doesn't work. And then it's like, well, sorry, put your dog down or whatever.
Yeah.
Very, very rare that we get dogs that are legitimately aggressive. It's super rare. Okay. Most dogs are dogs like Augie. They're stressed out, and the only way they know to defend them or protect themselves is by nipping and biting. Okay. So, and I was on a note here too. Remember when you first started coming here, how he was?
yeah,
A lot of heavy panting and stuff. And then today you walked in, he was very, very loose, came up to me, said hi to me, relaxed, no heavy panting. We even covered something new today, which tends to put the dog under stress, which is expected. So I was expecting to see some panting today. Nope, took it, no problem.
yeah.
And
He's even been panting on like walks. Like I can tell he's like closed mouth, like lip licking stuff initially, and then like on our way back, you can tell he's like releasing some of that when he's panting.
Yeah, that makes sense just because of the environment being busier, more things on the mind.
Yeah.
I would keep an eye on that. I would say that should also progressively be getting better over time as well. I would say increasing your number just to tighten up the heel, you should start seeing that become less. Okay? Because especially if he's how old is he?
When they found him, they said he was around 2, and they found him in like March of 2020
Okay,
or
so
2019. Or sorry, they found him in 2021. They said he was 2.
Okay.
So he should be turning 5
Sure.
in a month.
Yeah. So he's had plenty of experience walking around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's just a little bit of that brain left that needs to be kind of reined in to help him just learn to completely relax, where he's not working himself up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think with raising the number, that should also start to help with that as well. Okay?
Cool.
Other questions?
No.
Give him a tap here. Tap. Tap. Wait a sec. Tap. Tap. Go to bump it, go to 30.
Oops.
Tap. Hold right there. Tap. Better. So why do you think I had you tap there?
Because his head was off.
Well, his head's off here too, right?
Yeah.
So why else? But that's part of it.
Was he not relaxed? Or
He was relaxed. He was starting to get distracted. There was a brief little moment where he kind of puckered his nose, sniffing the ground. So that already tells me the brain's going from 0 to 0.5, right? So I ignored it because it was like, whatever. But then it's like also good for you to recognize when the brain's just starting to get escalated. You corrected them. So here, it took a few and we had to bump it a little bit. So it might have been connection on the neck. But he finally pulled away, turned around, and now his attention is more in your direction, right? So you'll see this if you do extended duration, where he'll be on the bed, and like you might see his kind of head like this with his paws, and then little by little, they just start to become more and more. That's the brain pressing the boundary. That's where you correct. Okay. So the collar should always push him either back to the object or within the space of the object. That's how we can tell the dog is understanding the concept. If he didn't have good understanding, it would have pushed him off, which if that would have happened, you would have continued tapping, leash pressure to counter him, to bring him back. Okay. And eventually once he fully understands, you'll see him, like he'll think about wanting to come off and you'll tap him and you'll literally see it just relax him back into a passive state. Okay. Which reminds me, if he's on place and he barks, you can correct for that as well. If that happens, a lot of times when you correct for the barking, the dog will come off of place. You'll continue correcting, then lead them back to place, because now you're correcting for getting off of place. Typically, by the 3rd to 5th time of doing that, the dog starts to relate that the tap is for the barking and not for being on place. So sometimes they'll get confused and think that being here is wrong, and they'll jump off, which is why we have to correct them again to lead them back. Okay. Anything else? Do you know what you'd like to work on for your next class?
Yeah, I think like off leash recall. I don't.
Recall yet?
No, he has a pretty good recall.
Okay.
I used the old e-collar that I had before this, before we started working together, on vibrate, and he responded well to that. I've taken him to like empty dog parks, and he'll come right back. My backyard isn't. It's open. It's fenced in, but so he'll run around back there, and then I call him and he'll come. But sure. I don't plan on having him off leash. I have a long line that I use if I let him, want to let him run around at a park or something. But I think from a safety perspective, just in case something happens, I drop the leash or he decides he wants to go do something. Yeah.
So we have a 30-foot leash here that we use, so you won't need to bring one.
Okay.
Do you have one of your own to practice with?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we can work on recall. I'll have you go ahead and bring his muzzle next time.
Okay.
Because what's going to happen is it's going to be a 2-person exercise, and I'm going to be taking him and pulling him away from you, but the dog starts to connect that I'm setting him up to be corrected. I've had a couple of dogs nip at me. It's nothing bad. It's not the dog becoming aggressive towards me, but they're just associating like, hey, you're setting me up for this to happen. So then they want to keep me back. Okay. And I've even had dogs that didn't have any issues jump up to nip at me because they're like, fuck you, dude. Like, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, you won't need a long leash, just a muzzle.
Okay.
And then we'll work on recall next week, no problem. Or next time I see you, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Oh, good job.
Okay. Oh boy. Here, let's untangle you first.